This all seems to connect to the prophecy in Ezekiel 38 and 39, which speaks of the war of Gog and Magog. Shalom, shalom. I'm excited to talk with you about prophecy, President Donald Trump, Turkey, and the hostage deal. We're living in very significant times, but everything's in the Bible. And the question that we have to ask is, what is the prophetic connection? One of the things that, if you know me, you know that I think numbers are very biblically important. And maybe you're new here, but the title caught your attention. So let me just start out saying that the Bible is alphanumeric. That means that you write letters, you write numbers with letters. There are no Roman numerals in the Bible. So every number is associated with the Hebrew letter, and that means that every Hebrew word has a numeric value if you add up the letters. And that's where we get in the book of Revelation, the Antichrist names will add up to 666, just for an example. Trump in Hebrew has the numerical value of 330. Well, why is that significant? One reason is that why that is significant, and we're going to look at several, is that 330 is also the numerical value of Turkey in Hebrew. So Trump equals 330, Turkey equals 330, and this has huge prophetic significance with what is going on in the world, and more specifically, some of the events leading up to the end times, the end of days, and the return of the Messiah. One of the significant events that has happened in the Middle East, which again has great prophetic significance, it's what happened in Syria and how that connects, we'll see in a minute, to Turkey. We know that in the Bible, in Isaiah 10, at the very end of Isaiah 10, it talks about how God was going to cause Lebanon to fall. And then Isaiah 11:1 is a prophecy about the Messiah, the root coming forth from the stump of Jesse. And so the prophet Isaiah makes this connection between the fall and war in Syria and the coming of the Messiah. And that's why many Jews in Israel, religious Jews, think that the war in Syria, Lebanon, all the things that are going on in the Middle East demonstrate that we're in the Igvesa de Mashiach, that we're living in the footsteps of the Messiah. There was one headline in an Israeli paper that talks about the spirit of Messiah hovering over the Middle East as a result of all of these events that are going on. Now, how does that connect to Trump equal 330 and Turkey equal 330? Well, think about it for a moment. Syria was led by President Assad, who was an Alawite, and he was being propped up in power by two main nations. One was Russia and one was Iran. But what happened is that there were rebels in the nation. They're really former ISIS rebels that began to lead a war, a revolt again, to change the regime, to take over the nation. And they wound up capturing all of Syria. And they don't like Russia and they don't like Iran. And they basically kicked Russia out and said Iran can have no place here either, because there's this battle between the two branches of Islam, Sunni and Shia, and ISIS is Sunni and Iran is Shia. And so this new leadership that's in power, former ISIS, Sunni Muslims, don't want to be associated with Russia and Iran. And so there was a power vacuum in Syria. Who was going to support this new nation? Because in and of themselves, these rebels couldn't do it on their own. So now they are being backed by Turkey. Okay, so Turkey came and filled the gap that was being filled by Russia and Iran. And that is good and not good. So on the one hand, this is prophetically significant because there is a connection here between Gog and Magog and Turkey's involvement in Syria. So what I'm saying is that it's no coincidence that Trump equals 330 and Turkey equals 330, and Turkey is coming onto the stage in a greater role in the Middle East, and in particularly in relationship to Israel. And so Turkey used to be friendly with Israel until their new leader, Turkish President Erdogan, who is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is also the same group that is really behind, in part, Hamas. And so he began to increase hostilities with Israel. And this past week, what did the president of Turkey say, Erdogan? He says, Israel must withdraw from Syria or it will cause an unfavorable outcome for everyone. In other words, just this week, he directly threatened Israel. Remember, Israel now has ISIS on its border. In the days past, Syria contained a significant portion of the Golan Heights, and therefore it was a strategic advantage for them and a threat to Israel to be able to shoot down into Israel from that high vantage point. And so Israel has gone a significant distance into Syria to create a buffer zone so that they won't have ISIS on the border, so that what happened down in Gaza on October 7th won't happen in the north of Israel, in Upper Galilee, and in the Golan Heights. But Erdogan has threatened Israel, saying they need to withdraw or else there is going to be consequences. And it seems that he is threatening threatening military consequences. Whether he's actually going to act on that or not at this point, that is a question. But listen, some of the past statements that he made, even this summer, this is what he said, addressing members of his party. He said, we must be very strong so that Israel cannot do these things to Palestine. Just as we entered Libya, we might do the same to them. There is nothing we can't do. We must only be strong. So again, that was only this summer. You put those two statements together, but they're not just words. Turkey is taking action. Like China, Turkey is investing significant amount of money in building up its navy. The Turkish Navy has announced construction of 3 warships, a submarine, an aircraft carrier, and a destroyer. Again, this is significant. They've also recently been doing a military exercise called Blue Homeland 2025 in the Black Sea, Aegean Sea, and Eastern Mediterranean Sea, with 31 unmanned naval vehicles, 87 surface ships. I mean, we can get into the numbers, 20,000 personnel. So this is honestly very concerning and something we should definitely be aware of. And on top of that, Turkey has offered to rebuild Syria's military. They want to fill the void of Turkey and Iran. Prophetically significant, as we're going to see. But also we have to ask the question, why are they doing this? Again, President Erdogan, the head of Turkey, is a radical Muslim, part of the Muslim Brotherhood. And really, he sees himself as the one who is going to restore the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was one of the greatest Muslim empires in history, and part of that empire included a vast majority of the Middle East, including the land of Israel. That was until World War I, when Turkey sided against the Allies. They sided with Germany and wound up losing the war and therefore lost power. The British came in, they were given the mandate over the Middle East, and that's how we get all the nations that we get today and led the groundwork for Israel being declared as a state. But the ancient Ottoman Empire included Ukraine, right? And there's a war in Ukraine, Greece, Hungary, the Balkan region, and significant parts of the Middle East. So then this begs the question, how does this play in to the end times? I think it's significant. Significant, Trump 330, Turkey 330, and Turkey aggressively asserting itself more and more against Israel as Trump is taking power and is so pro-Israel. Trump 330 has an antagonist in Turkey 330. But I want to look at this scripturally and the connection here and then go deeper into the number 330 and then into the hostages. This all seems to connect to the prophecy in Ezekiel 38 and 39, which speaks of the war of Gog and Magog. The war of Gog and Magog. So why is this significant? Because many people think that the war of Gog, that war of Gog and Magog, that Gog is Russia. Why? Because it refers to the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, or Tuval. People have thought, well, Rosh sounds like Russia, but that's not correct. Meshech sounds like Moscow. But Rosh literally means head or chief, like Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, the head of the year, the beginning of the year. So Rosh is not a place, but it can be understood as a title. And Meshech and Tuval, according to modern day scholarship, the Zondervan Illustrated Bible Dictionary says Magog might possibly mean the land of Gog, and no doubt located in Asia Minor, which is Turkey. Historian Edward Yamaguchi wrote, since the late 19th century, Assyrian texts have been available which locate Meshech and Tubal in central and eastern Anatolia, which is Turkey. So Turkey's attitude towards Israel makes sense. All of this, I believe, is setting it up for the war of Gog and Magog. And I believe Gog and Magog is probably not Russia, though Russia might have a role, but it's more centralized in Turkey. They are at the heart of it, along with Persia, which is Iran. So now it makes sense that Turkey's rise to power and Turkish attitude towards Israel, at the same time, President Trump, who is much more pro-Israel, is getting ready to go and shift things, God willing, in the Middle East. But there's more. 330 is not just the numerical value of Turkey. It's not just the numerical value of Trump. Trump and Turkey are the antithesis of one another. But 330 is also the numerical phrase of the phrase in Hebrew, lifnei cherev, the edge of the sword, which is used in terms of armies in battle. And one of the things you remember about Turkey is the Turkish swords and the Turkish sabers as one of the signs of things that is associated with Turkey. But also the phrase, he is after us. So he is after us, 330, edge of the sword, 330, Turkey, 330. But what's even more astonishing in my mind, and what I found as I was researching, is that the biblical phrase, miketz yamim, end of days. The Hebrew phrase, kates, can refer to like the end of days, has a numerical value of 330. From the end of days equals 330, the same numerical value as Turkey. Again, I think there's something hidden here, something being alluded to here prophetically by the numbers. And 330 is also the numerical value of the phrase, those who dwell in it. Well, why is that significant? Because that phrase, those who dwell in it, is found in Ezekiel 39:6, which is one of the two main chapters in the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel 38 and 39, that's talking about the war of Gog and Magog and the battle with Israel. And this is what the verse says, Ezekiel 39:6, where it says, those who dwell in it, which equals 330, I will send fire on Magog and on those who live securely in the coastland. So those who live in it, those who live securely in the coastland, and they will know that I am Adonai. So spoiler alert, the nations that attack Israel, which we know are for sure Turkey and Iran, maybe Russia's involved, there's a dispute upon that, but for sure, Turkey and Iran are definitely central in that attack, okay? Connected to the number 330. But spoiler, God is not going to allow them to win. God is going to defeat them quickly. And that defeat of Gog and Magog, I believe, happens before the great 7-year tribulation, during a time of peace when Israel is dwelling securely in its land. All of these events are leading up for Israel to dwell securely in the land. And Israel has to dwell in security for a season. That's why you're going to see the Abraham Accords going to a next level with Saudi Arabia. You're going to see things change with Iran's posture towards Israel. But also the phrase, the Lord is in the midst, equals 330, because when God delivers Israel, even as he's done during all of these things that have gone on, attack from Hezbollah in Lebanon, Syria, Iran, the Houthis, it is shown that the Lord is in the midst, 330. That is in the good news. Listen, I believe that God is wanting to show us by the number 330 that he is in the midst of everything that is going on in your life and history. You don't need to fear. God is near.